Good YouTube, it's your boy KB with Just Do Boxing, back with another video. So we got some interesting but expected news in the world of boxing. We got the return of King Ryan Garcia versus Emmanuel Tagoe, if that's how you pronounce his last name, April 9th in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio on the Zone. King Rye, he 21-0, 18 knockouts, 5'10", 23 years old, 70-inch reach. Last was in the ring in January of 2021 when he faced the toughest test of his career in Luke Campbell, who he knocked out in the 7th round with a body shot after getting dropped himself early in the fight. He was tested early, knocked down, he got up, credit to him, he responded well, and got Luke Campbell out of there with a body shot. He's been out of the ring since, and since then, he's attached his name to several fighters in which none of those fights came to fruition. Garcia, he was slated to fight Javier Fortuna in July of 2021, but he withdrew from the fight to address his mental health. Then he had a bout against Jojo Diaz that was set for November of 2021 that was canceled after Garcia's, he suffered a wrist injury while training, and he went through a tough year. He had a tough time. He said everything came tumbling down on him mentally. He said he had a lot of anxiety and things like that. He needed to take time off of boxing. But as we know, he was attaching his name to several fighters, Gervonta Tank Davis being one of them. Then he moved on to Manny Pacquiao. From Manny Pacquiao was Fortuna, from Fortuna to Jojo Diaz. He went back and forth on social media with Isaac Pitbull Cruz. More recently, he had a little back and forth with Tevin Farmer, and that's 6 fighters that he didn't fight, And it's to be expected. I think this guy is more content being popular than a great fighter. That's just my honest opinion. I think he's skilled, he has some talent, but I just don't think he's hungry as a fighter. And it's starting to show. He's fighting a 33-year-old that's coming off a 15-month layoff, and a relatively unknown fighter in Emmanuel Tagoe. And this is just levels below the opponents that we expected to see him in the ring with. He called out all these different fighters. He went back and forth on social media with all these different fighters, and he fought none of them. He more recently thanked Emmanuel for taking a fight, claiming that nobody wanted to fight him because they didn't believe he would fight. I mean, history says it itself that you didn't want to fight these guys. You were just attaching your name to these bigger names in boxing, these credible fighters, and you weren't fighting none of them. You weren't looking to fight any of these guys. It just looked like you was clout chasing, as they like to call it. You was trying to validate your name off fighters that been putting the work in while you've been dealing with your issues and things like that. So Emmanuel Tagoe is definitely a step down from all those fighters I mentioned. I mean, he's unknown. He's only known for having, fought a handful of maybe recognizable opponents, if that. He got his only TKO. His only loss was a TKO in his pro debut. And then, his biggest win was his last fight in October of 2020. He got a majority decision over Mason Maynard, who was known for his KO loss over Teofimo Lopez when he got knocked out, I believe, in the first round against Teofimo. So Emmanuel's fought, limited opposition, very low-level competition, in my opinion. He's 32-1 with 15 KOs. 5'8", coming off a 15-month layoff, 33 years old. Father Time and inactivity is a recipe for disaster. And, I just don't see this guy. He's an okay boxer. The little highlights and the little film that I watched on this dude, but I just don't see him being able to upset Ryan Garcia. I don't see it. He's not known as a puncher or anything like that. He's a decent boxer, but he's an older guy. He's coming off a layoff. Ryan Garcia himself is coming off a layoff and a wrist injury. So I could kind of understand the soft touch. But as a supporter of the sport, when you constantly attaching your name to other fighters and not fighting them, you know, the fans are gonna get bored with the same old song and dance from Ryan Garcia. And, you know, and hopefully after this fight on April 9th, he starts to take his career a lot more serious, and he starts to get in there with the top names or the upper echelon of 135. Because, you know, names like Emmanuel Tagoe or Tagoe, then it's not gonna cut it. It's just not gonna cut it. I mean, I'll watch it because I'm a supporter of boxing, but after this, I expect Ryan Garcia to you know, get in the ring with the top level fighters like he's been clamoring, like he's been, you know, on social media arguing back and forth and constantly stating how he had knocked this one out, he had fight this one, that one. And we all know, I think that's just nonsense at this point. I think he's just talking. And like I say, he seems to be more content with being a social media sensation than a great fighter. So, you know, we'll see April 9th if where he's at exactly in his career. I mean, this won't be much of a test in my opinion. I just don't think so. I think Emmanuel was carefully handpicked, and I think he you know, Ryan Garcia was given a soft touch. You know, Oscar De La Hoya stated that, you know, his birthday present is the return of King Ryan Garcia. But it's not much of a present because, you know, he's not getting in there with a guy that any of us are familiar with, and that's the problem. You know, I support all fighters. I'll give them their just due and their respect, but if you're gonna call out the top fighters, we expect to see you in there with the top fighters. Not a guy, you know, 33 years old coming off a 15-month layoff, you know, and he's just relatively unknown, like, you know, by the boxing world. We don't know this guy, you know. So that's my thoughts, man, on this fight, man. Hopefully we see Ryan in the ring with much better competition after he picks up a win over this guy. I feel like he was carefully handpicked, a soft touch for Ryan to get his feet wet again. And to some degree, I understand it, but the only issue I have is when you got a guy constantly calling out, you know, top level fighters, and then he gets in the ring with a guy like this. You know, it's a little disappointing and underwhelming, you know, but that's boxing, and that's how boxing goes sometimes. But that's my thoughts on this fight. Y'all get in the comment section, let me know what y'all think, man. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you can be notified when new content drops. And also get in the comment section, let me know if I gave King Ryan Garcia and Emmanuel Tagoe their just due. That's what I do over here at Just Do Boxing. To the next one, I'm out. Peace.